Hello and welcome to another Maine SBDC webinar. My name is Kelsey Reardon and I'm with the state office hosted on the University of Southern Maine Portland campus. And we have two Maine SBDC at CEI business advisors today, Peter Piccone and Allison Lane. And we're going to be going over seasonal businesses and how to prep during the off season. So there's a lot of things that need to be wrapped up at the end of a seasonal business and also at the beginning of that season. So Peter and Allison are going to walk us through some good tips for making that transition smoothly to the next year. And we're thrilled that you're here and being proactive for your small business. If you're not familiar with the Maine SBDC, we are the Small Business Development Centers, and it's a federal funded program. It's a national program, so each state has their own SBDC, and then there are centers throughout the state, and there are advisors in each center. So our advisors provide confidential, no-cost business advising, and they can help with just about anything your small business could need, and if they can't help you, they can find someone who can. So we can't provide legal or accounting advice, but we can connect you with some lawyers and accountants who could certainly help you out. If you have any questions today, go ahead and stick those in the chat below. You can also respond to any email you've ever gotten from me, and it will end up in the same place. So keep an eye out for my follow-up email later today. That'll include the slides and a link to the recording. So if you have any questions that come up later, like I said, just respond to that email and I can connect you with Peter or Allison as well. All of our contact information will be in that follow-up email, including a link to request advising. So if you're not already set up with a business advisor, we hope that you will. And hopefully today's presentation will convince you how great our advisors are and how helpful they can be. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Peter.
Kelsey, thank you. And thank you all for showing up today. We appreciate it, right? It's a busy time of year, so thank you. We're going to cover a lot of ground today, so I'm going to apologize in advance because there's so much stuff, but it'll be fun. Before we get started, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded and it's going to be sent to you afterwards because there's a bunch of links, great resources you're going to have as part of that. So don't worry about taking notes. Just sit here, interact with us, do what you got to do. This is a pretty intimate group. We've got a few folks in the room here, so I was going to have you stay on mute, but you don't have to. If you do have a question, feel free to stop us at that point and just ask the question then, because it's such an intimate group. So we're going to work on that mojo. But if you do have some longer, more thoughtful questions that maybe need to be written, feel free to put those in the chat. It's a great place to go to. I might ask you to use the chat today a little bit later, so make sure you know how to use that. But if you don't, talk to Kelsey. She'll get you squared away. Before we get started, let me do some brief introductions. First of all, I'd like to thank Allie Lane for joining me today. She's going to be teaching the marketing side of this, but I am Peter Piccone. I'm the SBDC advisor. I work out of the Waterville office, but because of my skill sets, I work throughout Maine, especially on the coast. I have marine business emphasis on what I do, and also spent many years in the outdoor industry on the West Coast, doing a lot of different kind of things, outdoor retail, charter services, things of that. I love strategy. I love talking about the forecast for business, where they go. The planning side, I love it. You're going to find that I'm a glass half full kind of guy too, in terms of what we do. So that's what you're going to get from me today. Our other advisor today is Allison Lane. I'm gonna pause for a minute and I'm gonna let her pipe in and give you a bit of background on who she is and what she does.
Hey everybody, thank you for having Peter and I. So I am an SBDC advisor based out of the Bangor office. Doing it now about 3.5 years. Before that, my background in business ownership was in food service. So that's sort of where my heart lives. I also just really like food. And now marketing is the area in which I like to discuss the most. Although as advisors, we cover a lot of ground, a wide variety. We work with just about all industries across the state. And my mentality is very just realistic. I just want to drink what's in the glass. You know, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to drink it and get it done. So Peter and I like to work together because our mentality, we agree on a lot of things, but we also have that slight shift. So it's really fun. So looking forward today in about, I don't know, 10 or 12 minutes, talking to you guys about marketing a little bit.
Super. Thanks, Allie. That was great. All right. Before we get started, just to reiterate what Kelsey mentioned, like what is the SBDC? These are your tax dollars coming back to you, right? We're a state and federally funded program, and it's free advising. So we're here for you. There's 13 advisors throughout the state set up by region, right? We can help you with any aspect of your business. If it's planning, if it's strategy, if you're looking at financing or how to do credit, is there marketing and sales operations? We're here for you. Okay. So today, what's the motivation, right? Why are we here? Well, there's a good quote from Thomas Edison that talks about this, right? He says, most people miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work, right? So I want to thank you for showing up today and doing your hard work with us, your team at the SBDC. Let's get started. Let's talk about where we're going to go today. We're going to give you a lot of stuff on the road here. We're actually going to talk about the numbers. We're going to look at your budget. Allie's going to give you a pretty good dive on marketing, right? And we're going to talk about inventory, how new products work. Do you actually develop them or not? How do you do the sales calls? How do you set that up? What's the process, right? Then training employees, there's a good chunk of this where we're going to talk specifically about your front line, right? Even if you're a service business. And then metrics at the end. So before we get started, I want to give you a sense of what a seasonal business is, because it's not always obvious to me when I think about it, when I started to draft these slides, right? So I group them for me personally into two categories, either an ag-based business or a tourism-based business. There's probably a third category in there, but that's what I could come up with. So if they're ag-based businesses, I think of blueberries, right? That's a seasonal harvest. Might be apples. I used to pay to go apple picking with my folks and do that, right? Christmas tree farms. If you're looking at your wreaths, this is a perfect time of year for a seasonal business. Tipping potatoes or other crops like seaweed, which is harvested in the spring. There are another type of seasonal business is a tourism-based business, right? So you have seasonal tours. Could be kayaking, could be fishing, right? Could be bird watching. Could just be a tour to show you the history of Portland, right? A walking tour, right? Wineries don't have to be seasonal, but a lot of them are, just because not everyone's going out wine tasting in the middle of winter. Driving is a little more challenging. The ski industry is highly seasonal, obviously, right? Snowmobiling. The other part of that are other places like restaurants and motels. The ones furthest north, you just can't get to them at certain times of the year, right? So they are seasonal, or at least some of them. Motor lodges, youth camps and festivals fall into this category. Novelty stores, selling your tourist tchotchke, right? Your t-shirts, your Maine lobster hats, all those things, right? If you'd like, I'd love for you to put your business in the chat so I know what it is and I can speak more directly to it. I might use some examples from that. So if you're comfortable, jump into the chat, click on that. It's at the bottom of your screen. There's a little like a cartoon icon that says chat on it. Just click on that and it'll come up. You can type in the box if you're comfortable. So where do we start? I usually like to start with the numbers because the numbers rarely lie. As long as you put the right numbers in, this is where we go, right? And what do the numbers tell you, right? Does it tell you you're up, you're down? How does it work? We love to begin with the profit and loss statement because it tells you, it gives you some granularity, but not always, right? The profit and loss is going to help you determine your revenue streams and what your greatest revenue stream is grossly. Tells you about your expenses too, doesn't it? It's going to tell you this is what comes in, this is what's going out in a really quick one-page snapshot for the most for small business, right? It can tell you a little bit about cash flow. It could, but that's actually probably a different statement. So if you're small enough and you don't have a profit and loss, that's okay too. Talk to your advisor and we can talk you through on how to look at profit and loss. If you don't have those numbers, we can help you We actually have advisors that are experts in QuickBooks, believe it or not. We can help you do that. So basically, the numbers say, what numbers drive your business? How does it work? So if we're looking at numbers again, profit margins are different from revenue, right? Revenue is your gross, like I did 70,000 last year at my hotel. Great, right? But your margins are what you make, right? So out of all the hotels you made, you might have made 70,000, but your margin was only $30,000, right? You spent 40,000 to get there, right? So when you look at your margins, we look at the things that influence your margins the most. So I look at things that are influenced by inflation, right? So fuel, you might look at labor, lodging, right? You have to lodge people. How does it work? For a lot of people, they realize fuel's gone up quite a bit, right? Labor has gone up significantly in the last 2 years. So when you look at that, that all translates into your margins, right? This is where you can start to look at your numbers and go, are there cheaper options for what I want to do? Where can I be more efficient is basically what you're saying, right? Do I want to outsource products overseas? We'll talk more about this later. But can I be more efficient in what I'm doing? Can I source a local vendor instead of going to Portland to pick it up or to shop? Can I get it right down the road from where I'm at, right? If you want to look at profit margins, you can always chat with an advisor and see what works for them and see how they look at your margins. But by the numbers, if you just want to look at the numbers, I was the worst at this when I ran my business. I had to get an advisor. I went and got someone to help me with the numbers. So utilize your SBDC advisors to go over your profit and loss, balance sheet, and your cash flow. But the best place, I think, for what we do, where I like to work specifically, I like to look forward. And I like to look at your path for success. So we can create a set of projections for you looking forward to say, what does it look like to get to where you want to go? There's a link here so you can register for advising if you'd like, but be aware, this is where we can be helpful. So one thing about looking forward is going, hey, what's the budget for the year? If I have a business that's open for 6 months, what's the budget for that 6 months? Do I need $60,000, right? If I know that, right, I want to look at my cash flow. Cash flow is how money flows in and out of your business. Where is it strongest and where's the weakest? Do you struggle in May and June because a lot of the people don't show up till July and that's when you have enough cash flow to make it, right? Is that how it works? Or you're really busy starting in April, right? But right at the end of the season, no one's showing up. So you struggle with cash in the fall, right? This is where you can consider like a line of credit for cash shortfalls, right? How do you work around these short-term deficits for what your business does, right? There's different, do you get a loan from a buddy? Do you need $5,000? Is that it? Paying back in in 2 months? How does it work? This is also when you look at your budget, you can talk about your expenditures moving forward, right? Do you plan to buy a truck for the year? Are you going to add a portion of your building on? Are you adding a bathroom? Or adding more space for employees to stay, right? So this is also a place, if you're budgeting, you can develop a cash surplus for what you do. It's a great way to go too. You set aside a little bit every month for anything that comes up. So as you review the budget, we actually take a pretty good look at your balance sheet, right? When I was in business, this is the last thing I looked at because I didn't know what it meant for so many years. I was afraid of it, right? Because it had words like assets on it and debt. I don't want to look at my debt. So, but assets are things you buy. They're physical things. Did you buy a vehicle? Did you add on a section to your business, right? Did you buy another boat? How does it work? Did you buy an engine? That's an asset, right? And did you take on debt for that asset, right? So that debt is now part of your balance sheet. There's always unforeseen costs in your business, and that's going to show up in your balance sheet on some level, right? And are loans part of what you want to do? Do you want to take out money to help you? Are they on the balance sheet? If they are, you can consider looking at ways to consolidate your debt, refinance it, and potentially have a lower interest rate. I know in the last 6 months, consumers and businesses alike have put more debt on their credit card. Most credit cards are 14 to 24% interest rates. you could refinance that from a bank and get 8 or 9%, right? These are the kind of things you look at when you're looking backwards. Okay, that's a little bit about the budget and that stuff. I'm gonna hand it off to Allie now, and she's gonna look at the marketing side. Allie, I'm gonna let you pick up the share now. So there'll be a momentary pause here for the group.
All right, I think we switched over. Is everybody, if you aren't seeing the word marketing on your screen, holler. So I understand marketing can be an intimidating topic. There's so much opportunity with marketing and how you communicate with customers, but there's so many ways to go wrong, so many ways to go right, and it can be really overwhelming. So I think sometimes people just kind of shoot from the hip. And, you know, there is a lot of trial and error, but today the focus is obviously on what can you do when your season slows down, whether it's because you're closed for the season because you're a seasonal business, or if things have just kind of mellowed out. When I owned my restaurant, for me, I was open year round, but January, the brakes came on and traffic flow slowed. So that really is, you know, in Maine, almost every business is seasonal in some way or another, even if you don't close your doors entirely. So I think sometimes people think that if they do close for the season or when things are slow, that's the time to either stop communicating with people, stop marketing, or kind of just, you know, take a break from it because people aren't knocking on your door. When the reality is the off season is the best time to focus on marketing because you have just a little bit of brain space, and it's good to stay front of mind. So anyway, there are really 4 things we're just going to go through real quick that you should be doing in the off season when it comes to marketing activities. The first, if I can make my screen switch, the first is playing catch up. So maybe you're coming out of a really busy season. You haven't had a chance to get in touch with people other than literally the transaction of them making a purchase or using your service. So you may need to play some catch up. Keep in touch with people, staying on their radar, connecting with them. Learn. So marketing, like I said, there's a lot of ways to go wrong, a lot of opportunities to go right. If you do have some time and brain space in your off season, maybe there's something you've wanted to learn about so that you can implement into future marketing. And then of course, planning for 2023. So that's something you should be doing in your off season is when things get crazy again, how am I going to keep up with my marketing? So first, talking about getting caught up. If you have a website, does it need an update? Does it need a refresh? Is everything accurate? Is it time to update, put some more professional photos on there? Do you have a blog? Do you wish you had a blog? Blogs can be really great for search engine optimization, for getting found on the web. It gives you an opportunity to put a lot of words out there so that when people search for things that have to do with your business, they stumble on your website. So if it's something that's been on your list, great. I will say, and I think Pete mentioned this, and we're going to come back to this a few times, but don't feel like, you know, I put check boxes here. Don't feel like you are doing anything wrong if you don't feel like you need to check off all these boxes. So maybe I just said blog and you're like, I'm never going to write a blog. Okay, great. Nix it. Don't worry about it. Forget I even said it. So don't feel like you have to do all of this by any means. We'll talk at the end about how to use what we've taught you today so that you don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of things we're telling you you can do. Anyway, back on track. Maybe you want to look at your website's performance. Maybe you want to look at some analytics to see how has your website been doing what you want it to do. Off season's a great time to catch up on that. Maybe you need to get caught up on social media. Are your hours correct? You know, is your Google My Business page up to date with your up-to-date hours, or does it say closed for the season? Are there other social media channels that you'd like to learn and start using regularly? I know I have some clients that would be a great fit for Pinterest. And they're like, I don't have time to do a Pinterest. I have a Facebook page. Maybe they have an Instagram. Maybe they have a website or a Google My Business page. But when we start talking about other channels, no matter how great they seem, these people say, well, I don't have time to figure that out. Well, in your off season, do you have time? Is that something you want to prioritize focusing on? Same with your website. Are your photos on social media? You know, is it time for an upgrade for things? Is your About Me sections within your various social media pages, is that caught up? Does that need a shift? as far as, you see a lot, that's something you tend to forget about. You may set up your business Facebook page and write your little about me section and then never touch it again. And so now's the time. That's why this checklist is here, is this something you should be doing? And if not, that's okay. Do you have an email list of customers? Maybe you do a newsletter. Maybe you want to do a newsletter. Maybe you don't, but you have an email list, and it's time to get caught up and just say hi to everyone. Thank you for a great season. When's the last time you got a review on any of your social media pages, on Google, on Yelp, on any of those? And I can definitely say, we have Google My Business pages for each of our offices regionally with the SBDC. So for the longest time, until about a year ago, our SBDC Bangor office Google page had like 3 reviews, and one of them was bad. So I was like, wow, we spend all day teaching people about how to optimize their marketing, all this, and here I am sitting here with a 3 reviews. Like I was do as I say, not as I do. So anyway, I had a bit of an off season in our advising work last year, and I took the opportunity to reach out to clients and ask for reviews. And now we're up to like, I don't know, 30. Like it was easy and it felt really satisfying. So maybe it's a good time to start asking for some reviews. There's a link to a webinar I did a couple weeks ago on asking for and responding to reviews, if you want to talk more about that. Pricing, couple stars. We're going to come back to this in the next slide. Vendor communicating. So maybe you have a marketing agency that you work with, maybe not, but if you do, do you need to get in touch with them? Do you need to pause any of your service? If you pay them $200 a month for something, does that need to happen through your off season? Do you need to check in with them and debrief? Maybe talk to them about analytics of your website. It's good to always sort of over communicate and stay in touch with your vendors, even if it's just a check-in, keeping you front of mind, just like you do with your customers. So pricing, this is so important because of what's happening right now in the market, the crazy amounts of inflation. You all know, if you grocery shop, that bill is getting higher and higher. Everything, costs are rising all over the place. If you have not raised your prices in the last year, you need to evaluate and make sure that you're still making enough off of each sale. I always think of the business I worked with once that sold pizzas. And he came to me and he said, Allie, I'm not making any money. I'm selling a ton of pizza. My customers love it. They especially love the amount of toppings we put on because we load it. And I said to him, okay, well, how much does it cost for you to make each pizza? Because he was selling them for like $12 or something. He said, I have no idea. And I said, okay, well, go get a food scale and come back and tell me how much each pizza costs once you've loaded it full of toppings. And he found out he was only making like $1 off each pizza. It was bad. So he needed to reevaluate to make sure that he was charging enough. And he was absolutely not charging enough. And this was years ago, before inflation went crazy in the last, 6 to 12 months since COVID. So please double check your pricing. I've told, I think, all of my one-on-one advising clients lately, it's not all, but I'd say 85% of my conversations involve telling them, hey, maybe you should raise price. So definitely not something to overlook. So the second marketing task is keeping in touch with people. So even if you're not open or things are slow, it doesn't mean people don't want to hear from you. You got to have to kind of remind them that you exist. There's a lot going on. Your business is not as important to them as it is to you. So you have to kind of keep yourself front of mind. And even if your doors are shut, if you're closed for the season, if you're not making sales, you're still in business, you're still doing business. And you just might have a break from people knocking on the door. So how to keep in touch, social media. So local ice cream and grill, Jimmy's in Brewer, posts on social media. They post a countdown as they get close to their season to get people hyped up. They also do a great job of posting photos of their products all winter long to keep you drooling. Emails, again, if you have an email newsletter, keeping in touch with people that way is great. Again, blog, website, any chance to get yourself in front of people. And what can you post? If you're not posting daily specials, if you're not open and posting about things that are happening, you could post things, educational content, hey, happy holidays. You could say thank you. This is a great opportunity. Thank you for a great season. Thank you for being a customer. You could post images of your products and services, again, to just kind of get them hyped up for when you are up and running again. You could post a countdown. I mean, depending on what you do, if you can sell anything e-commerce, even if it's not part of your core offering, great way to stay in front of people and put a little bit of extra money in your pocket. So a lot of different ways that you can stay in touch with people. It's a digital world, so you don't have to be forgotten in your off season. I mentioned that there may be marketing topics that you want to learn about in your off season. Maybe not. So again, don't feel, this is sort of all of the 4 marketing tasks that I'm going through. This one is sort of the most optional and only if you've got things in mind. But are there things that you've wanted to learn about? This past year, I took some time to really learn about Canva, which is a really fun, you can use it to make more visual posts or emails or anything like that. It's the version that I use is free, so that's great, but it's a tool and it takes a little bit of time to play with to get used to it. I mentioned the blog thing earlier. If blogging is something you think would be really good for your audience or your search engine optimization, maybe learning about or starting to write some blogs would be great. Maybe you're trying to figure out your social media algorithms and how to get your posts and stuff in front of more people, especially with Facebook or Meta constantly seeming to be changing how it looks at businesses. And aside from learning actual topics, you can also just explore what's out there for resources. For example, I'll just plug us, the Maine SBDC. We have a YouTube channel with all of the webinars, or most of the webinars that we do, a ton of topics. So if there's something you've wanted to learn about, I want to best practices for bookkeeping, or how to ask for and reply to online reviews, stuff like that. I mean, check out our playlists. They're all sorted. Kelsey's got them all sorted nice for us now. HubSpot Academy, if you're more into reading as opposed to watching to learn, HubSpot Academy has a lot of really great free articles and resources, and I think some click-through courses and whatnot too. And it's free. Some of it's free. And then just another plug for one of our webinars. I haven't talked about market research, but if there's something you want to learn about in your off season, if you want to learn about your customers and what they like and what they don't like, and I did a webinar on this and the link is in this. So just to come back, you don't have to try to do all of this, but if something's caught your eye, really take the time to absorb it and practice it, or else you're just sort of wasting your time if you touch on a lot of different things, but never actually practice anything. And so don't try to be good at everything. And so last, and this is actually the first thing I think about when I think about marketing in the off season is planning. But as you've seen, it's not really the only marketing activity you should be doing. But it's sort of essential. So it starts with setting goals, identifying some general strategies to achieve those goals, and then coming up with actual tangible things that you're going to do and when you're going to do them. And that way, when it's March and things are starting to ramp up and you're getting crazy and you're like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be doing some marketing, but what did I decide to do? You're just going to look back at the notes that you take in December and you're going to say, oh, okay. So right now you're making it easy for yourself when it gets crazy to just do what you are telling yourself now that you're going to do. So think of this as you're setting yourself up. Life's going to be a lot easier. So just to touch on goals, start very broad. Start with 2023 is going to be about stabilizing, or 2023 is going to be about growth, or 2023 is going to be the year that I'm finally going to start planning to exit my business, planning to retire. So kind of give 2023 a theme, and then we're going to drill down to that theme. As you're drilling down into your theme, be smart about these goals, and SMART goals, which Peter will touch on as well, because it's an important sort of skill to have. They're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, relevant to what you want to do, and time bound. And I'll give you some examples in a minute here, but saying I'm going to grow in 2023, that's not a SMART goal. saying my revenue is going to grow by 10% by June of 2023. And if that's something that you can actually do, that's a SMART goal. I tend to like to think about buckets for goals. So maybe you have a bucket, your marketing goals. One has to do with digital marketing. Maybe another bucket has to do with in-person marketing. And then you may have other goal buckets outside of marketing, like human resources or bookkeeping or, whatever. So if you like to categorize things and think of them in buckets, do so, but you don't have to. And most importantly, if you set a goal, make sure that you've strategized how you're going to measure, success of that goal and when. So give yourself a timeline or a deadline, or set a reminder in your phone that on June 30th, you're going to revisit this goal and see where you're at. So you can't just set it and then forget it. You really have to commit to revisiting that goal. So just an example of a plan. So maybe your goal for your business is to enter the Northern Maine market. With whatever you're selling, existing product or service, you're just entering a new market. Okay, that's sort of a broad goal for the year. But you wrote a SMART goal around it, or maybe you wrote multiple SMART goals, but one example might be obtain 2 clients in Aroostook County per month for each of the first 6 months of 2023. So you can see that's very specific. It's measurable. We put some numbers in there. Hopefully that's doable for your business. That's something that you're going to know better than I do. 2 clients for some business might be nothing. If you're a food service business, getting 2 new customers per month that's not enough. But if you're a big consulting company and your packages cost $8,000, 2 clients might be more like, okay, I really can't get more than 2 because I don't have time to service more than 2. So, but you can see how it's very specific. Then the strategy, how am I going to achieve that goal? Well, I'm going to do it by doing some networking, and I'm also going to focus my social media more on that region. So then we started coming up with some tactics. So this is again where it's going to make it easy. When you look back, what did I say that I was going to do for marketing? You have it right here. So you don't have to make any decisions when things get crazy, in the spring. So maybe one of your tactics is to attend networking events on these dates. So now all you have to do is get up and show up to those events. You don't have to think about it. The decision has been made that you're going. Maybe another tactic is you're going to post on social media 6 times a month. And maybe, if you have the time and you want to, you can schedule these posts. So you could even prepare the post and schedule it to launch on a certain day. So you don't ever have to touch it again when things get crazy and you're on season. So again, make sure you've set aside time to check back and measure. Sometimes people will use us SBDC advisors for that. So I've got clients I just had a client today. We've now scheduled a meeting for March because she said, all right, we set our goals today. Let's touch back in the last week of March, and I'm going to hold her accountable. So I've got it in my notes on my calendar when that meeting comes up to go back through the 4, 5, 6 goals that we set and the tactics and to say, how's it going? So feel free to use us for that accountability. It's a free service. So that's exactly what we enjoy doing. Do you have the resources to make the goal attainable? So really step back and do the sniff test and say, am I actually going to go to those networking events? Like, is that realistic or is that too much of a stretch? And if it's too much of a stretch, okay, so be it. Back up, maybe just try to do one of them, but really give yourself the sniff test. And, I think sometimes business owners, you're all like high achievers and you want to do well and you're highly motivated, and it's very easy to overwhelm yourself. So don't be afraid to tone it back a little and get an easier win. And just note that the column on the right there, the tactics, is actually going to be a lot longer than the other 2 columns. So the tactics are the specific things that you're actually doing to achieve your goals. And it's, I only came up with 2 examples, but you're probably going to have half a dozen for each goal. So to sum up, 4 things to do to keep up with your marketing in the off season. Get caught up on anything that was falling behind, in the summer and fall. Keep in touch with people so you can stay front of mind for them, so that when you do open your doors again or when things get busy and they need you again, you're front of mind. learn. If there are things in mind that you want to work on, you know, make a note of those and come back to them now that you're in your off season, and make a plan for next year, because you will thank yourself for it later by setting goals, strategizing, and coming up with specific tactics to achieve those goals. So I'm going to send it back to Peter to shift gears again. We're trying to keep this, keep it exciting and go back and forth between topics. So Peter, if you want to, let's see. Yeah, perfect.
Back there, can you guys see what you need to see? I think I might have to restart it. Are we good? Can you see, Allie, can you see?
Pete, I'm seeing, I'm not seeing it in presenter mode. I'm just seeing your PowerPoint. Yep, there you
go. Got it?
No. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
It's still not show. We're seeing that you're spinning wheel again.
Okay.
It's like we always say, technology is great when it works. And so thank you for your patience. It's so funny. We jumped on here earlier to make sure we could do this seamlessly. And we continue to learn just like small business owners.
Try this. How's that?
Perfect.
Looks good. Yeah.
Awesome. Second time's a charm. Thank you for your patience. Don and Tori, thanks for putting your businesses in the chat. I appreciate that. So appreciate the sharing. So one of the other things businesses do in the off season is they gather and produce inventory for what they do, right? And some of you may not think you're going to do that, right? So, but you can source new vendors for what you do. Maybe like Don's a fishing guide, right? Maybe there's a new line of rods he wants to use, right? You can source a different line of rods unless they're sponsoring you. In that case, you want to stay with your current sponsor, right? But this also helps your storyline. If you can source products that are local, that gives you opportunity. You can tell a story where you're sourcing local products, right? And then let's say you could source a new vendor that is a recycled product, right? How does that work? Maybe you're using organic barbecue sauce, right? So people don't have to worry about this. I think Tori's doing the barbecue stuff. So think about that way when you're sourcing your different products. There's different ways to do it, right? Think about the people that you buy from for part of your services as your partners, right? Also, when you're thinking about your inventory and gathering, consider supply chain issues that are coming up. I know it was a pain to get products in from China through either Boston or LA this year, right? Those ships were backed up for miles, literally outside the harbor, right? So consider supply chain issues if you have those. If you don't, great. Or how to be more efficient in your operations, right? Is there a better way to do it, right? When we set up our steps to do stuff, is it more efficient to pick up clients here versus there, right? This is also a good time to retool or update any inventory, right? Go through all the things you're doing and reset. It's a hard reset, right? Do I really need 16 boxes of flies or hey, can I do it with 7? How does it work? Waiting for this to catch up. This is also a good time in the off season is thinking about developing new products, right? Do you want to do that? If you want to do that, think about what tech advances you can use to advance those, right? Is there video you can use now? One of the neatest things I saw was a website I go to that was an outdoor-based website. As soon as I went there, there was a loon that started calling. As soon as you logged into the website, or not even logged in, just clicked on the website. So no video because it slows things down, but a loon started calling. I was in the experience right away. Create that experience, right? If there's some new version to show off on what you're doing, right? You have a new line of fishing rods for what you're doing? Are there some new flies, right? Or you're featuring maybe an employee, right? Have those to show off, video, auto link. You can resource your manufacturers for these. They usually have things they develop, right? All the manufacturers want to promote their products and they already create a lot of materials for you. So don't do it yourself. Go to them and say, hey, what's new? Do you have any video or maybe copy content I can put on my website? Ask them first before you go down that road. When you develop new products or think about upgrading things, identify the opportunity, measure the opportunity. We're going to talk more about this here in just a sec. and then measure it, see if it fits. Research, develop, and then you can test that prototype. That's how it works. Let's take a little deeper dive on how to actually develop a product, right? I saw a great article by Forbes. There's a clickable link here. You can click on this and read the article yourself. But just to summarize, they've got 5 steps on how to do it. It was really simple. It's a great read. It's probably a 4-minute read too. The first thing they say is to identify that opportunity. Okay, that's obvious, right? But the key about that step is creating a need to fill it, right? What if you're a hotel, right? The opportunity is we now offer like a honeymoon package for suites, right? So you create the need to fill it. You now have a honeymoon package for your hotel, whatever that is, right? If I'm outdoor-based resource, maybe you're already on the water doing stuff. Maybe there's an opportunity to add to your existing service. For maybe you're going to do a bird watching trip after you do some fishing. Maybe there's an opportunity there. Who knows, right? Then once you do create that need and you have that, measure that. Does it actually make sense? Can you actually do those extra things in that time frame that you've developed? How does that work? Measure it. Does it create enough profit for you, right? We're going to talk about some of the profit margins in here in a little bit, but when you research and develop that opportunity, look at that. How does it fit your business? And then testing your prototype. Try it on your friends. You could grab a client or two and try it on them. Say, hey, if I put this product out there, if I had this new service, what would that be? If you have a barbecue sauce, hey, can I test this on you? Come over to the house, right? Or I'll send you some, right? So test that, get feedback before you do it, and then launch it. The key is here, before you launch it, position it, right? What does that mean? Actually, find the target audience. This is more on Allie's side of the business here. Find the target audience, look at your marketing. How does that work? Position it, launch it to the people that it'll be successful with. There's another link at the bottom. It's Learn with Shopify. And in 12 minutes, they tell you how to develop a new product. I don't necessarily endorse Shopify. It's a good platform, I know, but they have a great, easy to use video that's done in 12 minutes. So again, you'll get these links in the PDF we send around. So we've got a new product. Let's look at setting sales goals moving forward, right? So you've done some good numbers. Let's say you did 50K last year. And you're like, man, I'd like to grow by 10%, right? That's a good goal. But the very first thing you do is you don't just say, well, I want to grow by 10. You actually first look at what products you could expand. You could have a business where you can't do a lot of expanding for supply chain issues, or you only have so many rooms to rent and you're already full, right? So you can't expand those products, right? So first determine what you can expand, and then find the general categories that always produce within those realms, right? So there'll be some proven winners, right? And find the margins where you make the most, right? So find the proven winners, look at those, and then determine if you can expand them, right? This is where you might look at your margin. Maybe some of your products, your services, you don't make as much on because it takes more fuel to get there, right? Maybe if you're fishing, right? You're growing all the way across the lake and back, and that's 40 miles. It's a lot of fuel, right? But there's another shorter term fishing spot where you can get there, catch plenty of fish, and put birding in as part of that. Awesome, great way to do it. Your margin's better there, right? You can do research on what you want to do, right? Find your local producers, find something unique as you're setting your sales goals, right? That way you won't have to determine any sort of expansion goals or what can expand. You can look at, hey, I found this new product and I'm going to integrate it into my business. So you're creating something new to do that. There's a link at the bottom of this slide that's steps to setting sales goals, and there's examples. So this gives you a nice high level view, plus it gives you examples on what it might look like. So this was a really easy, fun read to go to. So there's sales goals. I'm going to just briefly touch on the steps. The key is the very first thing you do is to determine your business goals first and get your KPIs. Okay, what are KPIs? Those are your key product indicators. Those are the things that say this makes us successful, right? I'm going to visit KPIs here in just a minute or two. So I'm going to come back to your KPIs and how those might be formulated, how you might find those. But the very first thing you do is you determine your break-even point. How many months do you have to work before you break even until it's gravy? How many weeks is it, right? You have to work all of April, and that covers all your expenses for the year, right? How does it work? Or do you have to work a week out of every month, and then anything after that week is gravy? How does it work? This is where you'll circle back to making your profitability and determining what's smart. Again, make this a SMART goal, right? Is it specific? Is it measurable? Right? Is it achievable? Is it realistic? And is there a time component to it? Right? So once you have your break even, we said, okay, here's my break even. I make $500 a day. Anything above that is gravy. You can incorporate revenue into that equation, right? Buying revenue and sales goals meet together, how that works. Then you've got your break even. Is it a SMART goal? You can set your sales objectives in a way that you know you can have success to get there. So let's just say I want to grow by 10%. You feasibly may not be able to do that because of some constraint. So, and the most important part of these sales goals, the steps are important, right? That's key, but it's communicating those sales goals to the people that you're working with, or maybe just to yourself, right? How does it work? You're going to train your employees to do this. So let's talk about employees next. Quick note, another link at the bottom here, setting sales goals in 5 steps. Okay. So how do you speak to your employees about this? So the key component of any business are your employees, right? Sometimes you're the only employee. Okay. So I'm talking to you right now, or maybe you have several, part of a food-based business. Why would you do this? Right? The key is you get higher employee satisfaction when you train them. They're happier when they know what they're supposed to do. Aren't you happier when you know what the metrics are for success, right? So this also contributes to your better reputation for the business. If your employees know what they're supposed to be good at and they do that, your reputation grows across the board, right? And typically happier employees that know what they're supposed to do give you lower turnover in what you do. So you don't see a new set of staff every year. They're going to want to come back because of that relationship, because you're communicating to them. It also helps them, if you train them, to have a consistent storyline for what you're doing. You tell a good story, they know how to tell the story. That's better for your employees, right? It's also better for your clients. Okay. When the employees feel empowered in what they do, they have increased engagement, not only with your consumers, but with you as an owner. That's one of the most important relationships. So you'll have better engagement with them. They'll have better engagement with your customers, right? It's also a really important time. If you train your employees, you can encourage future leadership, right? Halfway through the summer, tell them, say, Brad, I'd like to have you open up the business every day, right? This gives them a leadership role. And now they're doing that every single day, right? Gives them. One thing I learned, I did retail at a retail fly fishing shop and also a full service on the West Coast. And we took trips anywhere from Alaska to Baja California, right? And I realized when customers came in my shop, they made a decision about it in literally 2 minutes. Your employees give them that impression in 2 minutes. They've made a decision, whether you like it or not. When you train your employees, they have an easier time to make a good decision on what you want to do. All right, let's talk a little bit more about how you might begin training employees, right? Where do you start? Start with your mission and your vision up front, right? If you don't have one or you're not sure what that is, there's a link at the bottom, tells you how to do it. Mission and vision explained from Mind Tools. It's a really fun, easy read. Once you know your vision, you know your criteria for success. If your goal is just to create the best customer experience in the outdoors, very simple. How do you do that? You create the right food, so your customers are warm, right? This is where you can get your key list of KPIs, key performance indicators, right? There's an extra slide at the end that I won't get to today because of time, but I put it in, you'll get it in the PDF, and it tells you how to do your KPIs. It's at the end of the program, so you won't see it, but when we send you the PDF today, you'll get how to develop your KPIs. And there's a link on how to do that, right? One of the easiest ways to begin to train your employees is just to create an employee training manual, right? It could be 2 pages, it could be 30 pages. We have templates for this also, so feel free to resource myself for this. I've got it. And in that employee training manual, you can put customer engagement 101. You can put all the things you want to translate to them in writing. You're going to tell them, but now you can put it in writing. Okay. Once we've started that process, let's look at one way you might consider training your employees, right? The easiest thing to do is break it down into hard skills and soft skills, right? Hard skills are, this is how you take someone's money, right? This is how you bring a product into the register, right? This is how you take out the trash. Those are things that are hard skills, right? Soft skills are things like, this is how you greet someone. When they walk in, look them in the eye and just say hi when they walk in, right? How to do it. These are the people side of the business. So break it into hard and soft skills, have a conversation, put it in your manual, okay? You can also personalize the training, make it for that employee. Maybe you have an employee that's really outgoing, put them up front, make the training fit them in a one-on-one. The biggest part of what we do is identifying how people learn and use multiple platforms when you give them the opportunity to train, right? Give them audio, right? Before they even come into work, give them a video to watch and discuss it when they come in, right? Or give them written resources that they can read. You see, I've given you things, video, right? I've given you things to read and video to do because I know each of you learn differently, okay? Another really easy thing to do is trying to cross-train a lot. A lot of times in businesses, you're short employees. This happened a lot with COVID. And if you cross-train someone that can now work the register and take out the trash, guess what? It's easier to run your business. So cross-train them in different parts of your business. Don't let them be too siloed in what they do. It'll help you run your business, right? Help employees set their own goals, right? If you bring somebody on and say, hey, by midsummer, I'd like you running the register, serving ice cream, and doing X, right? Say, I just want you to do this today, but by midsummer, I want you doing these 3 things. Helps them set their goals, or maybe they have goals that they'd like to grow into. Have that conversation with them, right? This also gives you the opportunity to provide ongoing education for what they do. Midsummer, give them opportunities to go do a webinar, go do an SBDC webinar, right? Here, give them a link to go watch this. Once they've got some customer service, have them go see a business that creates the right service experience. Have them do a visit, right? So these are 7 effective ways to train employees. Again, there's another link at the bottom that'll go into a lot more detail than I did today that gives you resources for this. But I want to give you some more resources specifically from the state of Maine. Let's take a look at those. The very first place is the Maine Department of Labor. We call it the DOL, right? There's their logo there on the right. The DOL, I'm only putting 4 up. The DOL's got pages upon pages of things that might work for your business. Not all of it will, but some might. So there's ways to go look at this. The Maine At Work Initiative, just to highlight 2 here, is an interesting program, but this provides training services at no charge for businesses. Think about that. This is free training. Click on this link, see if it works for your business. It may not, but there's other options. If you have safety issues, there's SafetyWorks. This helps you design to reduce job-related injuries, right? Cooking, heat. The other thing I want to highlight is the work opportunity tax credit for what you do. For people that face significant barriers to employment, if you hire them, there's benefits for you, right? Click on this link, see if that's something that is going to work for your business. Okay. Let's look at my favorite part. Not really, I'm joking, is updating the paperwork and the licenses, right? I was the people person, as you could tell. I like to chat people up. I like to greet them as they came in. So I would always sit down, I'd go through all my licenses, right? What did I have to annually? Your LLC, if you're an LLC, there's an annual fee for that, right? I usually would talk to my accountant and say, hey, what do I got to do? Tell me what. I would put it on his shoulders. That's where you might learn to delegate, right? Is your insurance up to speed, right? Maybe your insurance went up. You might need to shop your insurance. Maybe there's a better vendor out there for you, right? That gives you not only better service, but better rates. And if your industry has gone over any regulatory changes, restaurants, right, there's COVID protocols. If there's changes, check on that and see if there's other things you might have to be doing next year versus this year. Okay. And last but not least, one of the key things to do, and we've touched base on this on some level, is learn to define the team roles and the team metrics, right? And this is your reference point for this conversation is your mission and your vision statement, okay? But this is where you decide where you want to be first. Decide what you want to do those things. If you can, delegate the rest, right? Where does your talent create leverage? One thing that's helped our team at the SBDC is we use the Strengths Finder. For 20 bucks, you can get your top 5 strengths. The test takes about 15 minutes, so but there's a link to click on it. But there's a choice here you can make if you want. You can either be a little good at everything, or instead you can hone what you're naturally best at, grow into that. That test can help you start to define that, and we can help you with that too. But the most important thing to take home today, take a little chance just to recharge, right? Take a break, use the off-season recharge. So check out for at least 2 weeks if you can. I realize not all businesses can do that. That's an important part. I want to call that out for sure. And last but not least, find your metrics for success. Start with your mission and vision, get your KPIs, and there's a 3-step process right there. Kind of sums up the last 15 minutes for me for what I do. There's a link there, how to write your KPIs. That's what I was talking about. This will give you what you want to do. So now what, all right? Allison, thank you for helping organize this. I want to call that out a little bit, but I'm going to let you grab it from here.
Yeah, so Peter and I recognize, there's a lot of content in an hour. We just kind of threw at you, overwhelming. I mean, he just said the most important thing is that you take the time to relax. So what I would do if I were you, having watched this webinar, so probably tomorrow at some point, you're going to get an email from Kelsey with these slides, with all of the links that we referenced. If I were you, I would open up that email from Kelsey at some time in the next week while this information is still fresh. And I would just take 5 minutes or less to just pick 3 things. Maybe it's 3 slides, maybe it's 3, whatever. Maybe you print it out and circle them. Maybe you write it on a piece of paper. Just identify the 3 things that you most want to focus on and remember and take away from this. Maybe it has to do with marketing. Maybe it has to do with a certain KPI you'd like to look at. Maybe it's goal setting related, really just 3 things. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot since we just went through like 40 slides, but what's going to happen if you don't pick 3 is you're just going to move on and kind of, it's all going to be mushy. It's like the last bullet that Pete just went through that said, be really good at one thing, hone in on one thing, or be a little good at everything. In this case, I'm saying hone in on just 3 things. And then really map it out, of those 3 things, what are you doing and when? Is it something that's going to happen right now? Or is it something you're going to do, in a month after the holidays, whatever. So just kind of be a little bit more specific with yourself and how you're going to treat your off season, a little bit more intentional. And then another last, maybe not the last, maybe the second to last plug for us is if you want help staying organized with this stuff or honing in on one particular slide or topic or your 3 things, please let us know. The bread and butter of what we do is one-on-one with people. So we keep these webinars very broad so that everybody can pull something from them. But then we really like to work with you one-on-one to answer specific questions and get into your topic and everything that's relevant to you. So we are happy to help and feel free to register for advising if you don't already have an advisor. And that's all I have. Peter, if you just want to go, I think we've got another, we're happy to answer any questions. We know we're at time and we appreciate you hanging in with us today. And some links for follow-up if you want to reach out to either of us or register for advising or check out our website. That's all I've got. Pete, anything?
No, I just want to thank the group for hanging on for this. I know it was a lot to bring on, but I'm happy to spend a few more minutes here to answer any questions. I have another 15 or 20 minutes till I get into my next stuff, so I'm happy to hang out if the group wants to ask some questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for your expertise as usual. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Allison's right. I'm going to send out that follow-up. I'm hoping it's today, but I do have to leave a little bit early, so it might be tomorrow. And that will include the slides and a link to that recordings of today's presentation. So all of the links in the slides will be clickable, and also you can rewind back to anything you want to double check. Looks like we've got some thank yous in the chat, really good advice and great resources. So we've got some encouragement from another business advisor, which I always love. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer them. Like I said, you can also respond to any email you've ever gotten from me, and it will end up in the same place. So yeah, so we're just getting lots of thank yous. This was great.
Sure.
All right, well, unless someone yells out momentarily, we'll all jump off and get back to running those small businesses, and we will hopefully see you all at the next event. Awesome, we're just getting compliments, so we'll take it as a win, and we'll have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.